Hi, this is Debbie McAllister, and this is Light Up Your Worth. And this is episode 100. Yay! Episode 100. Yay! And this is occurring in February 2023. So if you're new to the podcast, we launched on February 28th. 2021. It seems like a lifetime ago, 100 episodes ago, really. And so much life has occurred, so much goodness. And as have been thinking about this episode as we were in the 80s and then the 90s, and I thought to myself, my gosh, I want to throw a party online. I want to give away, I want to give you a car and you a car and you a car. And I just kept thinking about Oprah and I wanted to go big. And then I got small. I had a whole rush of insecurities hit me, thinking, well, Deb, what are you going to do for 100? Like, how great are you going to be? I started having all these thoughts about my own worth in doing this for Light Up Your Worth. And so I thought what I do is a couple things. I want to dig into what that is, that perfectionist, a perfectionist that all of us have. Some of us have it more than others. And as a recovering perfectionist, I'd like to offer this episode and dedicate it to you. In fact, I'd like to dedicate this episode to every soul who has been on my podcast, whether it has been published or you're in the queue to be published or you have already been published and everybody can hear you. So if you guys will bear with me, because I would like to give a shout out to all these amazing souls. So when we first started my podcast out, I did the first episode and I was living in Reno and working for a healthcare organization there. And I was part of this business course who is also a podcaster, and she inspired me. So I basically went online, signed up for Anchor, and published it like on my phone and was scared to death. It was my big, come out of the spiritual closet. And I've talked about that before in episode 1 on Be Brave and Vulnerable. And what happened after I came out of the closet? Nothing. Nobody cared. And it really reminds you of like the 4 agreements. Like everybody is so caught up in their own stuff that nobody even even realized that I was in a closet, that I had put myself in a closet, like Dirty Dancing. Nobody puts baby in a closet. Well, I had put baby in her own closet. And so it was the beginning of what would happen through all of these episodes. The person who I was who did that took a step. And I feel like I have just changed and grown with you right here with me on this journey. And so I'd like to kind of pause on this journey and share a little bit with you and jump into talking about how perfectionist is part of this. So, my first few episodes that I did, I reached out to my friends to help me. The friends that I had worked with, that I was close with, and to say, hey, would you mind coming on my podcast? And they did not blink an eye. They were so supportive. And they're like, sure, I'll come on. I had no idea what I was doing. Some days I still don't. Honestly, as this solo person creating a podcast, and in case you don't have a podcast, it's a pretty big learning curve to get up because you have to do, the software, you have to find the guest, you have to talk with the guest, you have to kind of learn your style. You have to learn how the editing goes, the music, intros, let alone promote promote a podcast? What? Like, I'm still learning, right? Here, 2 years in on this journey. And so when you listen to the first few episodes, well, actually, quite a few episodes, there is no introduction. There is no, wrap up of what we were doing. There is no real show notes about what to expect. I was just so happy to talk with my guest. And so that's where I put my energy. I didn't learn all the other stuff that you need to learn in order for a podcast to grow. And so what I did there is that I just did it super, super messy. I knew that if I jumped into too much of learning all these should do's to help it, that I would stop myself. I have learned on this personal journey that if I research too much, I will stop myself. I'll start the comparison role, or who am I? Who am I? Who am I to do this? You guys relate to that who am I thing, because you know me as the voice or the video on YouTube. But when I think back, I think back to where I grew up, which was a working class neighborhood in San Jose before it was Silicon Valley, East San Jose. And, a shout out to my friends who I went to high school with at Silver Creek Raiders. Go Raiders! Even my listeners who have known me since middle school in Quimby Oak. Yay, go Lobos. And I've never really taken so traditional of a route. I didn't start college until I was later. And then I went to school for 15, 17 years, working on my bachelor's, and graduated when I was 40. So I've never actually done things probably the more traditional way. And so in starting this podcast, it kind of falls into that realm, right? Like, I didn't realize the steep learning curve that was ahead of me. That's like if you had asked me 3 courses in going part-time for all those years of my bachelor's, what it would feel like to receive my bachelor's, I wouldn't have been able to articulate those words. I wouldn't have had the courage to keep stepping forward class by class, week by week, paper by paper, and reading and dedicating myself to be able to get that done. And I approached the podcast in the same way. So we started out after my original episode with Love Wins with Tammy Morrison. And oh my goodness, we were laughing so hard, and we were calling ourselves Soul Sisters. And so if you haven't watched it on YouTube, go look. We are Soul Sisters, and Tammy was remarkable. I then talked to Sandra, and we talked about letting your feminine essence shine, and we talked about womb healing. And so if you haven't grasped that or heard of womb healing, oh my gosh, so powerful. And then I did a short episode on the International Women's Day. And then I called in my friend Alora, and I'd never really heard her journey of how she had come into this spiritual realm. And so I had met her doing a talking stick ceremony, a shamanic ceremony. And so it was such a joy to be able to just drop in and hear more about her story. Then I had on my friend Christina with Design by Nature with Arvaic Medicine, and it was just so beautiful. She was a newer friend, and she jumped right in to help me. And we had so many tech issues. In fact, we had so many tech issues. She was the actual first recorded issue we had. And she's gonna laugh and I wasn't laughing there, right? Because I was like, this is gonna be perfect. I don't know how to edit. We're just gonna do it perfectly. And I was almost on tears because like her earbuds popped out. They were, like we had all of these mishaps. I ended up having to stop the recording. I don't know how to blend the 2 recordings together. I still don't, guys. I still don't know how to do that. So if it happened again, I don't know what I would do. I would just go, okay, well, we got 2 episodes. That's what I would do. But this is the very first recording. I had all this pressure on myself. Like, why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we put so much pressure on ourselves? So I kept saying to myself, okay, you can do this. You can do this, Deb. You've done hard things. You can do this. So I started my self talk, started using my affirmations, I started using my tools, and continued on. Then I had on my friend, Stepping Fully Into Yourself, my friend Patricia, who we talk about ISA codes. And if you haven't learned that, she is really fabulous with money manifestation. She's just brilliant. And then talking with my friend Jolena, Taking Back Your Power, who has, since our episode, has launched a love energy store, like a hard, brick and mortar store up in Pennsylvania, up in the resort area. And I'm just so proud of her that we were able to connect. My friend Beth joined me for Radical Empathy for Ourselves, of this really unveiling of stuff that she had held so close to her soul and that she shared with the world. My friend Joanna of Tumbling of the Stones, learning crystals about tapping into your flow state with Jade. You Do You, my friend Cooper, who is just an amazing mystic as well as a magical songwriter and singer. We jumped into EFT with my friend Bernie, pop culture with spirituality with Rochelle. There's a lot of Disney references for all my Disney friends. Movement to Release and Heal with the dancer Beth. My friend Sonia with Recovery is a Good Life. Creating Happy Minds with Jose. See, I messed up her name. Jose. Sam is the nickname that she had me give her because I kept messing up her name. So sorry about that. Words carry energy when Chantini. And she is just this magical, magical being with words who I've worked with earlier on to learn more about how to express my own words. My friend Debbie, and we go through, motions, muscles, and pentiums. And we do actually a little thing if you ever wanted to learn how to read your pentium. She is just magical on being able to teach you how to do that. So here's mine, keeping it close. Then we talked with a veteran who's been around, Vicky of Blazing the Trails, on the days when you could not just take an online class to learn a modality. She has quite an amazing historical perspective that is just so enlightening. Why not just show up for yourself with my friend Michelle? Silver Lining All the Way with Serena. My friend Erin and I talked so much that we did 3 episodes and, talking about fairies and patterns and forgiveness and angels. Oh, it was such a beautiful experience. My friend Sarah with Name It to Tame It. My friend Becky with Unconscious Subconscious Beliefs, Unsolved Subconscious Beliefs with Becky Kramer, where we drop into hypnotherapists. And she's really trying to, demystify what that's all about. Disrupting the Pattern with Bobby Joe, a super, super emotional episode where she talks through the journey of where she's come from with PTSD. What are the Clairs? Exploring that with my friend Chelsea, where she really goes into what that looks like and how it shows up. So if you're trying to figure out that stuff for yourself, really great episode. Spiritual Empowerment in the Unspoken Truth with my friend Mary Jane, who uses her psychic powers to actually help women in their relationships. I've done, about this time, I started thinking about maybe I would do some solo episodes. I was all revved up. And then I recorded one, and I just really miss the companionship of the guests that I speak with. I'm not one who usually sits around with all of these deep thoughts by myself. Well, let me correct that. I have deep thoughts all the time. I live in the deep end of the pool. I have a hard time with casual conversation now. I didn't used to when I was little, or young, little, young. And it's just as I've expanded my life, maybe this is true for you. Have you also expanded your ability to have less small talk? I want real connection. So again, I struggled with, how do I put an episode out there just speaking to myself? And so what I've realized through some of this journey is that it was really more about being visible. And I like to talk with people. I'm a talker. I was that kid who sat next to the window, and the teacher would always have to say, Debbie, or Deborah back then, pay attention, right? Because I just wanted to daydream out the window. So I did a few episodes in that time frame. That was on episode 31 that I did a solo episode again. And then I had my friend on, Mary. Are you living on autopilot? What is your life purpose? We did with Daniel. We did a really good information on debunking what self-care is with my friend Van. We were releasing old negative patterns with Victoria. The power of manifestation with Christine. And Christine and I met on a girls' trip. I went into her retail store of crystals, and I just had to have her in my life and have her come join and meet all of you on the podcast. And that has just been a magical friendship that we've done. Expanding your capacity to believe with Anya. Hope to heal on your own terms with Joe Mann. Who are you as a woman? With my friend, now retired soldier, Melissa Renee. Allowing ourselves to feel our emotions with Jilly. We talked to a love coach, Presley, about calling in conscious love. I had a repeat on Christine come back on episode 43, and we just kind of touched base to see where life was at that point. Then there was a big pause. I took a pause to put together what I wanted to do for season 2. I thought that's what you do. You have a season 1 and a season 2. Well, here's what I know now. There's no rules. There's no seasons. If you want a season, great, claim it. If you don't claim it. So you'll notice that I'm in season 2 still since episode 44. Like, I haven't paused it unless I needed to for some other reason, but not some official pause. Usually it's because I was running around trying to get something out there, and it was just this every day, like, okay, I got to get it out on Wednesday. I got to get out on Wednesday. So Wednesday could be 7 a.m. It could be 11 p.m. That's changed now, but through that whole period of time, I was still like, okay, got to get my next episode out. Got to share this. Got to schedule my guests. I got to find my guests. I got to bring them on. So it's just been a really beautiful transition. I had my friend on, Vienna, and we talk about emotional codes. I started to talk about our own healing again. I had a separate episode. And then the next episode is where I started to expand into understanding more about galactic and multidimensional beings with my friend Julia. Talked about compassion. Talked about sound codes with my friend Nancy. I talked about how I was learning how not to forsake myself for others. Jumped into generational healing with my friend Shelley. And then I talked again about spirituality and our money, trusting what's ahead with Walkura, using human design for Robin Wynn, who was the first of my human design guests. And we were meeting on a introduction call, was not meant to be recorded. And then we just jumped in. And so, my hair's in a bun. I have no lipstick on, and I love lipstick, ladies, guys. I'm a lipstick kind of girl. Always have lipstick near me. And there was no lipstick. My hair's in a bun. I'm in a hoodie. But we went through my human design chart, and she was teaching me and everybody else. That's what's so great about that episode. And then we jumped into managing expectations with Natasha, our gifts of being a psychic with my friend Sandy, learned stuff about dreams with Britt. And then I brought on my spiritual mentor, Alicia Hartswell, and we talked about our frequency and vibrations, and we dug into what sacred soul alignments are, which is my favorite modality that I use. And so on the episode that we just recorded, the bonus for the weight, I'm using quite a bit of sacred soul alignments. So that was a delight to have Alicia on with me. Then my friend Karen, who was part of the powerhouse group that I'd met when I was living in Reno, and she came on and joined me. I talked with the host of the podcast, and we actually exchanged podcasts with Love in Yourself. So that was always A Path to Falling in Love with Yourself, also with Kareen. Had on a medical medium, Jamie. Drop Kicking the Imposter with Carrie. Had my friend on Tina about tuning into your body. And Carol really talking about that we actually have all the answers within us. And then the authors, Phoenix and Sarah, joined me, doing all of the work with Charlotte, who's also another human design facilitator, I guess is the correct word. And then my friend Adria was on, Catherine. We jumped in with Chris and Jen and Juliet talking about human design with marketing, learning how to communicate with animals with Kelly, and breaking into, blocks into our financial success, really talking with Jolie. We learned about prana healing with Kathy. We talked to who is now my personal coach, Val, on breaking away from good girl mentality with Val. So she is my coach. I've been keeping that a secret. That's my coach. And we work on my stuff that comes up, as well as keeping my vibration nice and high so that I'm able to fully show up for you here on the podcast. And I think we're thinking about doing a live together. So stay tuned to Instagram for that. Break it away from unrealistic standards from Ellie. I had Leona on, Leona Dawson. I talked to Anne about trauma with yoga. Andrea with shame. Tracy with talking with Galacta Ones. We've had Tracy and I have met together twice. Also talked to my friend Dr. Lisa Thomas. Had on Be the Love podcast, and then had a separate episode where I interview her, Brenda, and Dr. Tanya talking about options other than medication. Gayleen about how our dress can affect us. I had a psychic detective of Rachel, and she had a very powerful experiences since she's been on this podcast. And Janessa and I talked. Jill about boundaries. Brianna and I about voicing our opinions. Who's also book club that you hear me frequently talk about, the Besties Badass Book Club. My friend Amy and Caroline were about weight and just different perspectives on weight release. And then, of course, the last episode that you just listened to this before this is Jaren, and one more in between. And so, why did I go through the list? So, if you're still here listening, thank you. I appreciate you. And through all of this, through all the life transition, since I've launched this, I've moved from Reno. I lived up in the Washington Tri-City area. And then 8 months ago, I've landed down in Flagstaff, Arizona. And that was a pretty big transition for me. I went from working to not working to now working again here, as well as the loss of my beloved Blue. I have two dogs and they are a big part of my life. And now I have one. And so now it's just Lily and not Blue. And so that was a really big traumatic event to have lost. I was part of a reduction in force, ended up moving, putting all my stuff in storage, looking for work as I was continuing with the podcast every week. So there's just been a lot of healing, a lot of life that gave me opportunities to continually grow. And so many of the guests and I have had sessions together where I've been able to experience a level of healing that I thought I had experienced. But what I learned through this process, and I think when you think about anything that you've done that's new, oh, there's so much to learn. And yet we can't let that stop us. We've got to jump into feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And every time I would think about through all of these life experiences over the last 2 years, I would think about you and how I felt so pulled to provide these amazing souls as resources for you and in your own journey to heal, to thrive, to really step into all you are, to accept everything about you, to love yourself, step into your worth. Because I truly believe that when we own our worth, that it flows up through this like a big light, like you're a lighthouse. And so I just felt so divinely called to continue, to just figure out a way to keep this going, never knowing that we would ever hit episode 100. And so today I was reading through one of my favorite authors, which is Renee Brown. I would love to have Renee on the show. And really was thinking through about some of the stuff that she talks about with perfectionists, right? And where we get that, and this inner critic that we have. And one of the questions that came up, and my friend Michelle, I shared this on her podcast, her first episode of Living the Extraordinary Life. And when you're thinking of this self talk, you know, is that really true? The talk that you're having to yourself? Would you actually talk to somebody else when you have your doubts the way you're talking to yourself? No, we don't do that. You know, becoming more comfortable in the messy and all of the mistakes that I've learned away. And if you read my stuff, you'll know, yeah, no grammar king and queen here. I use Grammarly, guys, but I still make mistakes. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. If my grammar bothers you, you might be on the wrong podcast. And to know that's just one of my quirks. And what's so amazing about having so many guests is that you really start to really get at a really deep level how beautiful and how unique and how we're all the same. We're all searching for this really deep peace within ourselves and wanting to make a difference. We want to help everybody. We want those that are feeling called to a certain guest who resonates with their energy to reach out and book a session with them. And because they are all very different. And one of the ways that I've always used as my own discernment is to think about how my energy aligns with their energy. And I live that way. And so as I sit here and pause, I want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the inspiration through the really challenging opportunities of learning and growing that I've been presented. And I have no idea what's ahead of us here on the podcast. What I do know is that yesterday I went out to listeners' notes and I pulled up the podcast. And I had been celebrating that we were in the top 10%. Well, yesterday when I looked, we were in the top 5. And that's because of you. That's because of you being here, supporting this podcast, listening and sharing. We're in 31 countries. Never, never would I have expected this reach. And so my heart is so full of gratitude for you for being here through this messy journey. And I just want to pause and just say thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You continue to inspire me. And I would love to be able to continue to provide you amazing guests and resources. So please write me, send me an email, comment on the social media. You know, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, on Light Up Your Worth. I have the website now that has been created at the end of December. I was so happy to announce that every single episode of Light Up Your Worth is on my website that I've been working on in the background, which is lightupyourworth.net. I've stepped forward as a breakthrough catalyst coach, and I'm working with clients to help them through their own stuff, to help them really break through their own things of what's keeping them stuck, their own resistance, their own perfectionist. And so as I wrap this up, I want to read a few of Brene Brown's quotes for you. Allowing yourself to make mistake. A mistake is a perfect opportunity to learn, grow, and do better. Actually, that's not Brene Brown. Sorry, guys. So, oh no, I can't find it. Brene Brown, let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are. Thank you for helping me embrace who I am. And you will continue to guide and inspire me, stepping into this next level with grace and compassion for myself. I hold that sacred space for you. And maybe you'll say this with me. I am open to receive, allow, and I surrender. I am open to receive, allow, and surrender. So thank you again. I'm on repeat. My heart is full of gratitude. And with that, I will send you sunshine. And until next episode, stay well. If you enjoyed this Light Up Your Worth episode, be sure to share with a soulful friend who needs to hear this message. Thanks so much for listening and being part of the Light Up Your Worth community. My heart is full of gratitude for you. You are my inspiration to shine the light of spiritual, heart-centered women. Now go out there and shine your own light, sending you sunshine.